Well, good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 18 of the Rings of Power Wrap-Up.
Everyone, it's time to pull up a bench here in the common room. I'm James Tauber, the Sage of the South.
And I'm Sara Brown, Shield Maiden of Rohan. We're both here with the Man of the West, Alan Sisto.
And tonight we're going to be talking about the episode named Partings, which in a way makes me think that maybe they've parted with the lore, parted with common sense, but we'll get to that, won't we? I'm not sure what they were trying to say with partings.
Well, the one thing that has not been parted with is my confusion, but we'll get to that as well.
Indeed we
so,
will.
a quick welcome for those of you joining us for the first time. Here at the Rings of Power Wrap-Up, we talk about the plot, the characters, and what remains of the lore behind Amazon's The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power.
We also dive into some of Tolkien's biggest themes like mortality, free will, fellowship, and the fragility of elven souls. We'll also do our fair share of speculating.
You'll learn something new about Middle-earth every time you listen, and we hope you have a few laughs in the process. We're glad you've joined us.
And we hope you'll be glad you joined as well. Before we talk about this week's episode, and we have things to say, we want to remind you that if you want some company as you read the books that Tolkien wrote, you should check out Alan's original show, The Prancing Pony Podcast.
For over 6 years and 5 million downloads, Alan and his co-host, Sean Marchese, walked their way through Tolkien's Legendarium, from the Silmarillion to the Hobbit, and this season, the podcast is starting The Return of the King.
It's honestly hard to believe sometimes how long we've been doing it. Now, some say that the PPP is the finest Tolkien podcast this side of Bree. I won't say that, but some say. And even though Sean has recently stepped down as co-host, I'm still there. And this season, I'm co-hosting the episodes with a real all-star lineup of folks in the Tolkien community. I've already recorded a number of episodes with the Tolkien professor, Corey Olson. Later this year, I'm going to be working with folks like Matt from the Nerd of the Rings on YouTube, or Sean Gunner, the chair of the Tolkien Society. And in fact, these two folks right here, James and Sara, will each be co-hosting a few episodes with me later on this season. Humbly, I'd like to think that there's no better companion for your extended trip through Middle-earth than the Prancing Pony Podcast.
Now, before we get into this week's release, do we have any clarifications to make from last week's episode?
You know, I didn't catch any. Did either of you catch anything that we kind of messed up on or didn't go in deep enough? I mean, well, there's a lot of things we didn't go in deep enough. We could do that for hours.
Yeah,
I don't think there were any actual errors that we were called out on. We will always respond to those.
No, we don't make errors.
Corrections, addendums, that sort of thing, yes.
Additions to our thinking.
Yeah. That's right. Absolutely. Additions to our thinking. Well, speaking of addition, we had to do some math in order to come up with a grade. So what we want to do is a little bit of a midterm analysis here. This is sort of a parental back to school night, if you will. We're going to go ahead and let you all know how we think so far this show has done. Now, in fairness, this is only through 4 episodes. We're not giving it the grade after last night's episode.
Thank goodness.
The numbers might change. So we're going to look at the following categories. Visuals, that includes everything. Costumes, sets, practical effects, CG, acting, writing, music and sound. And then, is it getting the core of the original right? I'm not going to say how faithful is it to the lore because, again, there's a lot of lore gaps. So is it getting the core of the original? And then an overall grade. And I haven't even given my co-hosts a framework. If they want to grade A to F, if they want to grade 1 to 10, if they want to grade -10 to -5, I don't care. It's up to them. I'm going to tell you where I'm at. Visuals, I have to give this show, honestly, an A-. It's really, really good in many places, but I think the Warg CG drew it down to an A-, along with a couple other little CG issues. But the costumes, for the most part, fantastic. Acting, it is all over the map. Some much better than others, some not quite as great, but I'm going to at least say B+. Writing, I'm still only at a C on that, folks. I'm not going to be able to give it much more than an average score there. Music and sound, A. Maybe even an A+. The music has been fantastic. Sound staging, sound effects, everything's great there. Is it getting the core of the original right? Now, we're doing this for the first 4 episodes, not the first 5. Then I'm going to give it a B at that point. So overall, B- is where I'm at. What about you, Sara?
Okay, well, I'm kind of on board with what you're saying there about the visuals. In terms of costuming and the sets and things like that, I think it's wonderful. And I'm loving the settings and the sweeping landscapes and all that sort of thing. That's all great. Mm-hmm. A few CG issues that brings, as you say, it brings it down from sparkles, rainbows and unicorns to needs a little tinkering around the edges. So
Fair.
yeah, I think an A from me would be generous. A- would be about right.
Okay.
Now, the acting, in the main, I'm loving the acting. There's a couple of people who are a bit plank of wood, and a few that I think are struggling with possibly the not always fantastic writing, because that makes the acting difficult, doesn't it?
That is fair.
So I think that sort of plays into it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So the acting, I'm going to give a solid A to. Now the writing. If this was a parent-teacher conference, it would definitely be could do better. And
needs improvement.
It needs improvement.
Yes.
Yes, it does. There are times when I feel like they're trying too hard to come out with language that sounds Tolkien-esque, and it actually sounds like it's too stilted in some places. And then in other places, it comes out like, well, where did that come from? So, and we won't get it too deeply into how the writing is connecting to the conveying of the lore, because at that point it really falls down. So yeah, a C is about right there.
Okay.
I cannot say enough about the music.
Wholeheartedly agree.
The music is sensational. I absolutely loved it. And I have been playing over and over and over again the walking song, because
it's a lovely
that
piece.
was just divine.
Yeah.
And I love the way in which they are building soundscape into it. So A+++++, Bear, I love you. I think you're amazing. It's fabulous.
Agreed.
Is it getting the core of the original right? Oh boy. I think that depends on what level of viewer you are.
Well, that's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, if you are somebody who's coming to this having not read anything of Tolkien before, not even seen the films, then I would say what you're getting is a really good fantasy epic playing out in front of you. But for those of us who are really quite steeped in Tolkien's writing, oh man, are there some problems. And if they can't actually sell me on the explanations for some of the turns that they've made, there's going to be issues, I think. So is it getting the core of the original right? No, not right now. No. In places, it's a bit curate's egg. In places it's good, in places it's bad.
Yeah.
So overall, I'm going to give it a solid B, but it needs to try harder and focus more.
I can definitely hear that. James, what about you? What are we going to hear from you on these grades?
I think they're going to be pretty similar. In terms of visuals, one of the things I want to say is that when it gets things right, they're absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Right. Other than a few times where I felt like a little drawn out of the fantasy because of sort of glitches in CG or whatever. Other than those, it's been absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
So I kind of... I'm going to give this an A-, but it would be an A+ if it were not for just those few times where I felt drawn out of it. Yeah. It's truly amazing most of the time. The acting, I'm certainly all the major characters, I'm going to give an A. I actually think the acting is very well done. The writing, not so much. I don't need to repeat a lot of the things that have been said there with the writing. I'm going to give the writing a B. Sometimes it's quite good, but there are a lot of times it does feel forced. It does feel like they're trying to adopt a particular style that they haven't quite tackled yet. Music and sound, A+. I'm in complete agreement about that. I'm in tears over the music almost every episode.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
In terms of getting the core of the original right, I like to separate out how well they're dealing with characters that we know, how well they're dealing with themes, and how well they're dealing with sort of the facts of the lore.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of the characterization of people that we know from the books, I think they're doing a pretty decent job. Gil-galad would be he was a problem even in episode 1 for me.
That is true, yeah.
Other than him, I've enjoyed the characterization of the characters that we know from the books.
Yeah,
I agree.
Fair.
In terms of themes, I think there's still a chance they can do a pretty good job of that.
I agree 100% on that. That's the thing. The themes, they seem to be getting some of those things down just right. It's the characterizations and some of the lore issues, yeah.
Well, when it comes to the lore and so on, I keep thinking I need to give them a bit more of a chance because they still could be some reveal. It could turn out that
That's true.
What we're hearing is mistaken and so on. But you know what? They're painting themselves more and more in a corner.
They are.
That I'm not sure they're going to be able to get out of. I don't know how long I can make that excuse.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm with you.
And I worried about what solutions they might come up with.
Yeah, some of the solutions might be worse than the problems are right now.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of characters, other than Gil-galad and A, I think in terms of themes, I think that an A. But in terms of the lore, it's a C at the moment, and I'm worried it's headed in the wrong direction even from that.
Yeah.
Overall, I'm going to give it a B, but we're going to have to see what happens in future
that's the thing.
episodes.
I keep reminding myself, even after an episode like last night, I keep reminding myself we haven't seen enough yet.
No.
I'm not
Five
going
episodes
to.
in.
This isn't final judgment. Could write themselves out of this.
Oh, there was one visual that I forgot to mention that throws me out every single time. And that is, there's been a number of occasions when blood or something else has splattered the actual screen. It's actually coming out and hitting the screen. And I can see it. Yeah. I find that a strange choice.
It's jarring.
Breaking. Yeah, it's breaking the fourth wall.
It's the fourth wall.
It's stopping me from being steeped in it because I'm actually seeing the blood splattering on the television screen. I don't know why they've made that choice. So anyway, I wanted to throw that in there.
That's a very good point. Yeah. And I probably should correct my acting grade because you're right. My complaints about the acting really are complaints about the writing.
Yeah, that's the problem.
In fairness to the cast members, not any one of them in my book, even the ones who are being written poorly, none of them are doing a bad job of conveying that. And some of the actors, of course, are doing just absolutely amazing jobs. I got to give a hat tip right now to Owain Arthur, who, especially after last night's, has he's right up there and near the very top in terms of the cast members. But fantastic stuff there, at least with his acting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive in then to the storylines from last night. We're going to start with the Harfoot Stranger storyline, and we start, obviously, they're clearly on their migration, and Nori explains that they winter in the Old Forest, they summer at the Northfield Glen, and then they go to the Grove in autumn. Now, they don't really explain why that is, and you'd almost think that the danger of starving to death is a lot less than the danger they're going to experience on the road, but we'll take it for granted that this is the thing they got to do. There is an interesting moment I want to talk about for a second, the idea that the stranger sees himself as a peril, but then Nori says he's good. Let's chat about that a little bit. What do you all think in that moment?
At first, it wasn't clear exactly why he considered himself that, but then it did become clear that he was talking about the incident with the fireflies. He was making the connection when she defines peril as, causing death.
Things that you can make dead,
Yeah, he makes that connection with the fireflies. So that's why he's doing that. I'm a little confused, I'll just say at this moment, about the way that she is teaching him the language.
Yes.
As a linguist, I have some issues with that method of teaching language, but
I'm not sure there's a method there, is there, actually? That's
certainly at the stage that he's at, but that's not really. I mean, the point here is that he's trying to understand what's going on, trying to describe himself in terms of words that Nori will understand.
I found that interesting because you're right. That part of that was not just us understanding that he sees himself both as a danger and as a good, but we're also using that as a way to show us that he's learning the language because he's still trying to grasp that. And we see that from the very beginning of the shot with the migrate thumb, meaning migration. It was a little comedic moment that was cute.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely puts us in that frame of mind of him not quite understanding the language yet.
Yes. Did you notice that he's starting to speak with a Harfoot accent?
Yes.
A little bit, yes.
I thought that was a nice touch.
That is a nice touch, because if you're learning the language from somebody, then you're going to actually use their accent. So
exactly.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch. I thought that the moment when Nori emphasizes you're good because you're here to help, that seemed like a very important thing for him. Like he was trying to grasp hold of the idea that actually he's good, and that could be significant.
Very significant.
Because as we come to later when we see the weird priestesses, if there's any connection for the stranger with the side of evil, then being told and having emphasized that he's good actually might be very, very important.
Yeah.
So that could be a significant moment, I think.
I agree. And I did like the way she emphasized that and the way he sort of grasped, held on to that, like, I'm good.
And he kept repeating it.
It almost like, well, now I have to do the good thing. And of course, we're going to come back to that because there's a moment later on in this same story thread towards the end of the episode where he doesn't look like he's doing so much good. We'll get to that.
Yes.
First, I want to have us talk a little bit about the traveling song. Sara, you talked about how you've been listening to that over and over again. It is certainly beautiful. I'm sure we could probably spend the entire episode just breaking down the clues in the lyrics, but we're not.
Especially the first stanza.
Yeah.
I was just noting that, the sun is fast falling beneath trees of stone. Trees of stone, yeah. And then the light in the tower, no longer my home.
Yes.
Yeah. What tower?
Past eyes of cold fire, black sand for my bed.
Yeah.
Oh, I want this explained. What the heck is going on in that first stanza? I was pausing and writing it down and pausing and writing it, thinking, okay. So, trees of stone. What? And the light in the tower, no longer my home. When would a tower have been the home to a anyway?
Trees of stone might be the towers, right? If there were multiple towers.
So maybe there's clues in there. Black sand, yeah, and past eyes of cold fire. I mean, there's no way. I can't imagine that these have just been dropped in as, oh, that'll rhyme with that. There must be something in those lyrics that is going to be significant. At least I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so. We aren't going to take too much time to try to dissect that now, or we'd spend the next hour doing that. But it is lovely.
We can revisit it
as we see little nuggets and waves towards that. We certainly will. I mean, the black sand certainly puts me in mind of volcanic activity, but then again, Mount Doom hasn't erupted yet, so I don't know.
A couple of interesting lines I just want to point out in the Halffoot story. One is when Poppy says, "What madness made them go this way?"
Yeah.
Mirroring Gimli's line in The Two Towers, "What madness drove them in there?"
Yeah.
In the context of Fangorn.
In the forest, yeah.
Yeah, there will be a lot of those. I want to come back to that. In fact, I'll just do it now, right? We're in the middle of a storyline, but I'm going to do this now. One of the things I noticed about the Jackson films that I really liked was the way that they would pay homage to Tolkien's original language by giving words, dialogue, specifically to a character, sometimes to different characters, right? I mean, in the extended edition, Treebeard gets one of Tom Bombadil's lines. They give Gandalf's lines about Eowyn that he tells to Éomer. They give those lines to Wormtongue, but they're in there. They're actually verbatim from the text.
Treebeard's lines to Galadriel at the very start of the film.
Exactly. Or I was just recording for the PPP, recording an episode on Minas Tirith where we get the narrative about the Tower of Ecthelion. And, that's right. That's the text that they gave to Boromir as he's talking to Aragorn about being called home by the clearing of the silver trumpets. Well, what I'm noticing with this is that we're getting callbacks not to Tolkien, but to Jackson.
Yeah.
Yes.
That they're writing lines that make you think of things from the Jackson films. And I don't mind the callbacks. I think that's a perfectly wise thing to do. They were successful films. But they're not doing textual callbacks to Tolkien. They're doing textual callbacks to Jackson. And I'm finding that a little disturbing. Like, that's not the same, but okay. We got that a little bit last night, which we'll get to in the Moria Dwarven timeline soon enough.
The other bit of dialogue that I noted down just in this early part of the Halffoot story was at one point the stranger says, "Easier in the dark."
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's going to be significant.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah. I noticed that he repeated that line, so yeah.
Exactly. That you're right. It wasn't just him repeating it because he was trying to, establish the words in his linguistic abilities here. It's the significance of the dark. So I love these little flyovers, right? I mean, the path takes them south. They parallel the Anduin going towards the marshes, which I'm trying to remember. Were the marshes actually marshes at this point? Do either of you know? I know they got worse after the end of the Second Age, after the Battle of Dagorlad, but were they marshes or was it just a plain?
I always assumed it was just a plain. If these are what the Grey Marshes are referring to.
Looking at the map, it's pretty clear these were the dead marshes. I mean, they were called the Grey Marshes, but yeah.
And the Trout Bend and Thistledell and the Braids. There's a whole sequence of 7 or 8 of them.
It was really neat. I thought the map flyovers were lovely, but I did wish we'd zoom out just a bit and get more context. It's like, where are we? But I think that's the point, isn't it?
Yes.
What about that familiar phrase, and I did love it musically, not all those who wonder or wander are lost. Sorry, you really are enjoying this song. So I want to throw those lines to you and ask you to talk about that.
Oh, I mean, obviously you were just saying they're not doing very many textual callbacks to Tolkien, but here's one where they actually are.
That is true.
And they're applying it, instead of it being applied to Aragorn as it is in Bilbo's song, it's being applied to the Harfoots. And of course, if we're thinking about a character like Nori, she doesn't just wander like the rest of the Harfoot, she also wonders.
Exactly.
And that's pinpointed in the very first episode, that have you ever wondered what's out there, something greater? So that's clearly pointing to Nori, as well as to the life of the Harfoots and the way in which they seem to be wandering from place to place, but they're not actually wandering aimlessly. There is a point. They're going in a certain direction, and they're doing that deliberately. But I just thought that was a really great line to take from Tolkien and insert into this song in this moment.
And it fits the Harfoots.
It's perfect for the walking song.
Yeah.
I just thought it was beautifully done. I really did.
I did too. And I thought the execution of the song, I thought that the singing, it was done beautifully.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
Yes, exactly. Ask me again how many times I have played this song today.
Does it actually give you a play count, or are you able to see how you played it 117 times?
I may have played it slightly less than that, but slightly more than 4 or 5.
It was the first comment I made to a friend as I was watching it and sending messages was just how amazing I thought this song was.
Oh, it's lovely. I think it's the first time we've had a really great song with lyrics that we can latch on to. And that was something, of course, that the Jackson films did really well, is that occasionally there were songs with actual lyrics, usually as like end music or something like that.
But sometimes, like the bar stuff, the Pippin and Mary singing about drinking at the Green Dragon.
So I just thought that was really, really beautifully done. And
I agree.
It was perfect to have for the Harfoots as well. And kind of sweet, don't you think, that it was Poppy's mother's walking song?
Yes.
I did too. I thought that was neat, since we talked about Poppy being really all by herself now, and how that is reflected in her connection, her friendship with Nori and her family. I thought it was really neat.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if we're going to get to all the storylines tonight, we need to wrap this one up fairly soon. Let's go ahead and pick up on the important stuff. Obviously, the things that happen at the end with the stranger picking up the dog like it was a stray cat and flinging it.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that, and more importantly, the aftermath of that.
Okay, well, I thought that was the stranger's Hulk smash moment.
Oh, we know who it is now. It's Tulkas.
Right.
Oh, Tulkas smash.
The 3 hobbits cowering in the tree, and just as you think that the wolf is going to grab Nori.
Yeah.
And suddenly the stranger is in the way, and Hulk smash. Yeah. Wolf flies away. Here is where I think we've still got the stranger. What is exactly the stranger here? Because obviously he has great powers.
Yeah.
The fact that he can pick up a wolf and fling that wolf is one thing. So, I mean, he doesn't look like he'd be that strong. He's willow thin.
Yeah.
But then it's the moment afterwards where he strikes the ground, and it just kind of blows the wolves backwards with this shockwave. This is not the first time, of course, he's used that power. No, but I think that this is the biggest moment of doing it. It's stronger, more powerful than the first time he did this.
Yeah, but that strength comes at a cost, doesn't it? Right.
I mean, let's talk about that wounded arm that he gets from that, and the steps he takes to heal it, because that's what's particularly intriguing about this part of the story.
Yeah. Now, James, tell me that you know what he was whispering, because I picked up the subtitles and all it said was whispering in another language.
Yeah.
That is not
really
helpful.
Helpful subtitles there, huh?
The only thing I was able to pick out, and I only listened to it once, was he was saying Kala often. Okay. And that is the Quenya word for light.
Light.
Kalakwendi. Kalakwendi, exactly.
Yeah.
We need to know more to get a sense of that. But the ice is what's intriguing. The ice going up his arm, Nori touching his arm. And
sort of getting that ice infecting her, if you will, right? It starts spreading so rapidly.
And he doesn't seem to notice that happening at all. He's so caught up in what he's doing.
Yeah, he's very locked in, isn't he? He's not aware of her presence, let alone her touching him or her getting the ice going up her arm.
And I think one of the things that's significant about this is now Nori's not so sure.
Yeah. I think she's less than not so sure. I think she's now bordering on
scared.
Not so good. She's afraid. She's genuinely afraid. She runs away when he approaches after that sort of explosion, if you will, that outburst where she gets thrown back a good 15, 20 feet. I mean, that had to hurt.
Yeah.
The scary music again, right? We keep getting the cues that are mixed cues. We keep getting the Sauron music or the bad music. Then we keep getting his own individual theme. they're clearly trying to play us. They're clearly trying to confuse us, trying to keep us guessing. And this comes to one of the gripes that I'm going to throw out there, and then we're going to move on, but I want to get your input on it. I don't watch enough TV to know about this concept or this idea, but apparently this is something called the mystery box. And a lot of TV shows over recent years have taken this thing on, like Lost, which I never actually ended up watching. I know, it's a terrible human being that I didn't watch Lost. But my concern about that is that they're going to be focusing so much on building a mystery and keeping us all hooked, trying to guess, that the story will suffer, and the rewatchability of this is going to be gone, because if the only advantage to watching it is to solve the mystery and you've already watched it, what's the point of watching it a second time?
Yeah.
The other thing I would add to that, Alan, is it's not something that Tolkien ever does.
No, yes. Tolkien does the opposite of that. We've been talking on the PPP about that exact thing. We had a question in the mailbag about the synopses at the beginning of the Two Towers and the beginning of the Return of the King, where he gives away things that weren't in the previous books. He talks about in the one before the Two Towers about how they were attacked by orcs under the command of the Dark Lord Sauron and under Saruman. Like, wait a minute, they didn't tell us that at the end of Fellowship of the Ring. We only know that now because you've told us. Or the Return of the King, he talks about Pippin looking into the Palantir. He says he looked into one of the 4 surviving Palantiri. Like, wait a minute, I didn't know there were only 4, but I know that now.
Well, even the name, The Return of the King.
Yeah, The Return of the King. Or, you read the Silmarillion. It's all over the place, right? He says in the first chapter, the Silmarils were the greatest of all jewels, and they are lost. And then he proceeds to give you a book about how they got lost.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he didn't care about the mystery box. Yeah.
There's a danger to having a mystery box structure. And I've been talking about this actually quite a lot with people.
Good.
And the danger is that you create too many mysteries. And at some point, you've got to actually reveal the solution to these mysteries. If you get too many building up, then you kind of lose the whole structure of the narrative. It all becomes just about the mysteries instead of about the story.
The story then serves the mystery instead of the mystery serving the story.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a potential problem. The other one is that when you finally get the payoff, who is Sauron? Here is Sauron. There is Sauron, that kind of thing. If that payoff doesn't match expectation.
Oh, yeah.
Then you get the wah, wah, wah moment where instead of the water cooler movements, everyone is going, why
it just becomes a meme.
Bother?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is a real potential problem.
That's a huge risk.
Yeah. And if you think about the number of mystery boxes that they are setting up, why is this happening? Why is that person doing that? What is the purpose of this? Who is Adar? Who is Sauron?
It's all in some respects, it's all we've got at the moment. There's a bunch of mystery boxes.
And that is a potential problem. The thing is that there are a number of TV shows in particular that use this kind of structure now. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And you've mentioned Lost. Lost is one where it didn't work because you got to the final season, and I know I'm spoiling it for you, but the chances right now of you watching it are
chances of me ever watching it are pretty slim.
Right.
Yeah.
You get to the last season and it was dreadful because the payoff didn't match the anticipation.
Yeah.
So the one thing that they're going to have to watch very carefully is when they finally start unwrapping some of these mysteries, that payoff that we've been waiting for had better be worth it.
It better be there. And they better not stretch it out.
Yeah, because you've got 5 series here to stretch all of these things out over.
One advantage they do have, so where it has worked well, I think, is where it has been planned in advance. Right, something like Babylon 5.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking of, right.
Even though there were changes that had to be made because of cast members leaving and cancellation and so on, for the most part, you actually got some wonderful setups and payoffs because it was planned in advance. And my understanding is that Rings of Power is planned in advance. Unlike Lost, unlike Battlestar Galactica, unlike The X-Files, they're not making this up as they go along.
That's a fair point.
Let's hope not, because that would be bad.
That's a fair point.
Can I just make one last comment about The Stranger before we move on?
Yeah, please do.
I want to point out that wonderful scene where he looks up at the moon.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
I don't know if it's going to be meaningful later on, but I did want to point it out because there, of course, have been some theories about the stranger potentially being the man in the moon, or having some connection to Tilion and so on.
To Tilion, yeah.
I did want to point out that wonderful scene where he looks up and the moon is right above him.
Huge and near its full. Yeah, that was a beautiful moment. I thought the music then was particularly nice as well.
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff. Well, folks, we're going to go ahead and talk about more storylines right after we come back from the break.
We're about to jump back into talking about today's episode, but we want to remind you that when you finish listening, the talk continues all night long at the Rings of Power wrap-up.
We have an amazing community of listeners, and they really do like to keep the conversation going. From the Rings of Power group on Facebook, our Twitter feed, our Reddit community, and more.
Now, on Facebook, just look for Rings Wrap-Up. Be sure to follow the page so that you get all of our posts, but also join the group for some really great discussions on the show and on each of our episodes.
If you're on Reddit, look us up at r/Rings Wrap-Up and follow us on Twitter and Instagram where we're at Rings Wrap-Up.
And a quick favour to ask. If you like the show, please help us by giving us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts and recommend us to your friends.
Indeed, thank you. We're going to go ahead and jump right back to the storylines. We're going to start with one that's sort of a tag to the Harfoot storyline, but I think we're going to have enough of it later on that it warrants its own identification, and that is the line of the cultists, the ones that are tracking down the stranger. Of course, when we saw the trailers, we had no idea where they were. I think we all speculated they were in Númenor, because that's the way they cut the trailer, was to make us think they were there.
Mm-hmm.
But we get this foreboding music at the end of the sequence with the stranger. We get a look back at the crater, and that's when we see the cultists show up. So they're sort of like CSI demonic, right? I mean, this is, they're definitely CSI Morgoth here. What do they think was here? Are they tracking their boss? Are they tracking a foe? Talk to me about your thoughts, because there's not a lot there.
No, not yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two possibilities here. One is that they were drawn to that crater simply because that's where the meteor landed. They saw the meteor, they wondered what it meant, they went to investigate. The second possibility is that they knew very well who it was, and it was actually part of, whether it's friend or foe, they needed to find the person that landed. And that's, I think, going to be really interesting to see the intersection between the cultists and the Harfoots. I suspect we're going to see some of that in the next episode or two.
Ooh, that could be unpleasant.
Yeah.
That's going to be unpleasant.
There was some really interesting costuming going on there for these weird cultists. I mean, what looks like priestesses, for example, or priests, gender undetermined at the moment, actually.
That's
even
true.
if that is at all part of it, which it may not be at all anyway.
It may not be.
But the kind of white cloaks, but also with like this sort of metal staffs and the strange
some symbolism going on with the
and one of them in armor.
Yes,
with again some odd symbols upon the armor, all that sort of thing. So very, very interesting portrayals, because they look uncanny. That's what I wanted to come up with. They look
uncanny. Good word.
Uncanny. Yeah, maybe not the person in the armor, but the two cultists in the white robes look, that's the word I want. They look uncanny.
Yeah, that shot, the last shot, right, where you have the one that's down at the crater site turning around and looking back, and you get that look that we had in the trailer. Yeah, uncanny is an excellent word. And, you pointed out priestess or priest, because really it is at this point. Yeah, it may be an actress playing the role. It may be a female actor playing the role, but we don't know if gender is even an issue with this character. It's just an evil person, an evil cultist doing something.
It's an evil person, yes. Well, it certainly looks. They don't look friendly,
that's true.
Put it that way.
Wouldn't it turn out to be that they're like a friendly people? Hi, Harfoots, we're just here to help you.
Have a cup of tea and a biscuit. Can I interest you in some religious tracts?
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, come to our meeting next week. Okay. Well, before we get ourselves into too much trouble there, we're going to move on to the next storyline, which is Adar and the Southlands. Lots to talk about here, but we can't spend too much time, folks, because we've got to get on to the very long storyline of Númenor and the very meaningful line of Lindon and the dwarves. So let's go ahead and see what we can do in about 10 minutes here with Adar and the Southlands.
Well, not too much going on in the Southlands, really. There's just sort of like little bits that we're getting, a little bit more of Adar. And the interesting thing I wanted to pick out about what he was doing, apart from making poor old Grugzuk expose his arm to the sunshine. I mean,
I'm sure he wants to know where his HR director is after that.
Yeah, that's really not nice. Anyway, Adar says, and he's looking at the sun, for soon it will be gone, and with it, the part of me that knew its warmth as well.
Ooh.
Is Adar planning on destroying the sun?
Or blocking it with smoke from a volcano or something?
Yes,
exactly. Yeah.
So that was, I thought, rather interesting. And the tunnel is complete, which is kind of scary.
It is very scary. Yeah, I mean, we're going to see some action coming up, sure. Yeah, I think Grugzuk is probably going to send one of his subordinates next time to make the report to Adar.
Yes.
We talked about sound effects. That was really, really cool because in the background that entire time you're hearing his skin sizzle.
Yes.
Oh,
and
it was
flies
so creepy.
Buzzing.
Yes,
just flies buzzing around him. Ew.
Really miserable. We cut, of course, to Bronwyn and the folks from the Southlands there at the old watchtower. She's addressing the people, talking about the news of Adar's offer, trying to rally them to stand and fight, right? And interestingly, they start to agree. I mean, hands start shooting up, and we're like, she's already rallied these people.
Yeah.
Which, seemed a little quick. But
Shades of Eowyn as well.
Yes, Shades of Eowyn for sure.
And also a parallel to what was going on in Númenor, where you have Miriel saying this is what's going to happen, who will serve. And, I think that you're getting some deliberate parallels between Miriel and Bronwyn. Bronwyn is the only one wearing blue.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I thought that was very interesting. And I think we'll see them together in the next episode. We've seen some clips, right? The little teaser at the end showing what's happening next time. I think we'll see them there very shortly. But of course, the decision to serve and the decision to fight is not unanimous, is it? There's one guy. There's always one guy.
Waldreg. There's always Waldreg. Our supposed enemy.
Oh, I thought that line was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's
because he's not really our enemy. He's our supposed enemy. He's our alleged enemy. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And this is Waldreg's moment. He thinks, great, Sauron has arrived. This is my time. And that, of course, is why he calls Theo to come with him.
Yeah, it's our time now. But Theo stays.
Theo stays, which was a pleasant surprise.
Yes.
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised.
I thought it would have been it would have been a trope if Theo had gone with Waldreg.
That's true. But honestly, at this point, I think I would have expected the trope. So I'm actually kudos to them for breaking with that. I was very glad to see him stay. And then, of course, when we do cut back to that storyline, because that's the time when we cut away to another story, we come back and Waldreg is now speaking to Adar. And that moment is so cool.
Oh, wow. Yes.
He kind of oversteps his line there a little bit. He calls him Sauron and pledges his loyalty. But, obviously Adar is in this no spoiler mood. He throws him to the ground. It's like, don't tell anybody my name. But maybe that's because the name Sauron isn't something he likes, right? We know that in The Lord of the Rings, he doesn't allow people to call him Sauron. There's a reason why. What does Sauron mean?
Yeah, Sauron's a Quenya name that means the abhorred. It's related to the Quenya word for foul and evil smelling and so on. It's clearly what the elves called him, not what he called himself.
That's right, because he called himself Tarmyron, which is King Excellent.
The Admirable, yeah.
The Admirable.
Yeah, Tarmyron is basically King Excellent, King Admirable, yep.
I love it. Humbly, my name is Tarmyron. Yeah, so, he calls him Sauron. He calls him the Abhorred. He doesn't know that because I'm sure Waldreg has been missing his Quenya classes. But that gets him thrown to the floor. And then we get that moment with Rowan and the knife. We're left wondering what really happens.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Adar says only blood can bind.
I think that's important because when we then go into the Númenor line and Halbrand talks about the terrible things he did, I think we're going to find out that there's something similar, that there's some sort of blood combined, because he talked about the blood oath too. So we'll get to that in that particular storyline. But at that point, of course, we do cut back to Arondir, and thank goodness Theo stayed, because now we get this really nice conversation between him and Arondir, don't we?
I think it's one of Arondir's longest speeches, actually.
Yeah, it really is, actually.
Yeah. But it's, for me, Arondir is the closest to being elf-like of any of the elves I've seen yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've said this before, but Arondir has that otherness and grace, and just don't know how else to put this, but he just seems most elf-like to me. I just find his character really convincing.
I do too.
He has a calmness to him that we haven't seen in any of the other elves, I don't think.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because it's not a hard stoicism, right? This isn't like a Vulcan, to reference the Star Trek thing. This isn't some unemotional...
He's in control of his emotions. Yes.
He's unflappable. And even though you can tell these are deep emotions right beneath the surface, his admiration of the people, his belief that they have changed, obviously his love for Bronwyn, these are all right there, and he does a really good job of conveying them without speaking them. And so we're left with a guy who never gets angry, never gets excited, never gets sad. He's very even-keeled, very stoic without being detached, I guess, would be the way to put it.
Yeah. He does connect with Theo on a really profound level.
Yeah.
And he says that, it took me 200 years to develop the courage that allows me to stand here. You did it in 14. I mean,
which is pretty incredible.
We're talking about a teenage boy with no father figure. I can see the way in which Arondir is connecting with Theo actually being really significant for Theo. And not least because he listens to Arondir, he pays attention, and he believes what Arondir is saying to him, to the extent that he decides he's going to reveal the hilt.
Yes. And I think there's a couple things at play there. One is, of course, his belief in Arondir, but the other, I think, is the fear of God that Waldreg put into him. I got to tell somebody who's not on that side about this thing.
But there still has to be trust there.
Yeah. And I think that trust was harder for Arondir to build because of his... Okay, Theo says it's a lie that Arondir has been with his mom, that Arondir and his mom have a thing going. But you know that somewhere in the back of his mind, he thinks that might be the case. And imagine yourself in the shoes of a 14-year-old boy whose dad is gone, and you're watching some guy from a race that you have conflict with being in a possible relationship with your mom. This guy's no friend. He's a rival. He's a danger. He's a threat. So the fact that Theo is warmed up to him is really impressive. I mean, like more so than if he was just an elf.
Yeah. One last thing on Theo. Does he just have a bad haircut, or is there a reason we can't see the top of his ears?
Oh.
Just asking?
Just asking. I still think he's Aquagorn's son. Rather
Could be. Could be. Or it could just be a bad haircut. But we haven't seen the top of his ears. Just saying.
As a Las Vegas Raiders fan, I know bad haircuts. I mean, it's not as bad as Mark Davis, the owner of the Raiders. Google that, folks.
Or Kemen's haircut.
Oh goodness, Kemen's
terrible.
hair. Kemen. Oh, that poor boy.
We'll come to him.
Yes. Still calling him Kevin in my head.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's clearly pulled from a, Hallmark Channel rom-com and I mean, straight out of one. But sticking with this storyline real quick, and we're nearing the end of it. The moment where Arondir realizes he's seen that hilt, he goes to pull some ivy off a wall, revealing that terrifying carving. I've got a question for you both. How did that get here? This is an elven watchtower.
Right.
Did the elves take this over from somebody else?
It's not an elven watchtower. A fun thing I noticed having the X-ray on watching the Amazon Prime, where they've got the little facts on the side. They actually say that Ostirith was built by men who previously followed Morgoth. So it's not an elven watchtower. It's actually built by men.
Okay. That now makes a lot more sense.
That does.
Yeah.
I was wondering. Though, for the 79 years they've been there, that ivy has grown over it and they've not, wondered, I wonder what we should do about this. It's just kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, maybe the ivy was at least covering it up and they could ignore it.
It's kind of an eyesore. Nobody likes to see that or be reminded of it, I suppose. So how does he know that it's a key to enslaving the Southlanders?
Well, even he doesn't know that.
That's true. Yeah, he thinks it is.
Isn't there a human figure at the bottom of the sword lying down as if the sword is stabbing
Is impaling them?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that's just the symbolism that he's picking up on, that this sword is is used for
some sort of power.
Yeah.
It's an interesting moment because, of course, this is when we get deep despair on Bronwyn's part, right? After the revelation of that symbol, after the reminder that these people have once served Sauron and now it appears he's coming back, he has that conversation with Bronwyn, and she ends up coming out of it being there's only one way to survive, and that is to surrender. She's gone Waldreg's way.
Yeah.
She despairs.
She really does despair. She embraces it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I think it's that moment where she has to stop and think, is this our fate?
Yeah.
I mean, we know that fate is a really strong theme in Tolkien's work anyway. Is this our fate? Is this who we are? Is there any way of escaping this?
And yet, of anybody, men would have the ability to escape that fate more than anyone else, right? I mean, the music is as fate to all else, as we know from the Silmarillion. So elves might have to say, if it was a group of, let's say, Avari, elves that have never, traveled to Valinor. If it was them and they said, oh, this is our fate, they might actually have a legitimate argument that it is their fate because it would be in the music.
Yeah, but ask Turin about fate,
Well, yeah, Glaurung might have had a little to do with that. Morgoth's personal attention never helps, but I don't know. It's an interesting idea, but it certainly shows us how quickly somebody can go from hope to despair. And it's a tragic moment, no doubt about that.
Yeah. And of course, not the only time that hope is actually discussed in this particular
That's right.
episode.
No, absolutely. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to Númenor now. And we're going to have to move through it. A lot of things happen, but we're going to only talk about a handful. I thought it was interesting to observe pretty quickly that Elendil is just not willing to give Isildur a second chance, is he? You've made your choice. That's it, man. We're done.
I don't think it's a second choice. I think
exactly.
He's been given plenty of second choices.
Well, I say second chance. He's not willing to give him another chance. The seventh or eighth chance, right.
This is a dad at the end of his tether, I think, with Isildur.
Yeah.
Because he just keeps, he seems to keep messing up. Certainly his friends refer to him keeping on messing up, although this is the mess up of all mess ups.
Boy, it sure is, yeah.
But I mean, the dad, you can see dad still loves his son.
Oh, yeah.
Because when Isildur says he wants to serve, Elendil says, nothing would make me prouder. And you can see the sincerity.
You really can, yeah.
He's not messing with him there.
No.
But he's also not willing to give Isildur yet another boost. And Isildur actually rather cheekily says, put me to the front of the queue. Seriously, dude.
Yes.
What have you done to earn that?
Again?
Yeah, and I wanted to say one other thing. I wonder if they're setting up, I know they don't have the rights to this, but this may be another thing like the name Armenelos. It sounds like they're setting up his rescuing part of the tree because he says something like, I hope that one day you're able to do this mighty thing, to
something that you're
that
really
shows
willing
that you're willing to sacrifice your life or risk your life for Númenor. That's about it. So hopefully we'll see that. That would be a wonderful moment to see. We do end up with this scene with the hostile crowd in Eärien, and she ends up in a conversation with Kemen, trying to convince Pharazôn to go against the Queen Regent. Now, that was a bit of a surprise to me, but tell me if I'm wrong. I'm seeing this only as a personal thing for her. Like, she doesn't want to see her father.
She's worried about her father.
Yeah,
father
that's
and
what
brother.
I'm getting.
Yeah.
This isn't like she hates the elves or anything like that. This is just...
No. Her father and her brother are disappearing off to Middle-earth. They may never come back.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't see Dad saying, goodbye, Eärien, don't worry, we'll be fine.
Yeah, nobody seems to really care about Eärien. I guess she's got Kemen now, so she's okay.
Well, bearing in mind she's lost a mother as well, right? So that she does not want to see her father and brother go off.
And Anarion is goodness knows where right now.
Well, yeah. So not appearing in this season. Yeah.
I just thought... Poor Eärien.
Yeah.
She's been completely left behind.
Totally
and the
abandoned.
only thing she gets out of Isildur is a cheeky grin over his,
I made it.
over
I'm
his
going.
shoulder as he marches away in his fancy helmet.
Yeah.
And I just thought, poor girl, she's just been left behind.
She sure has.
That's a bit rough.
It is a bit rough.
But yeah, the thing with Kemen, though.
Besides the haircut.
Oh, besides the haircut.
Besides the haircut. Wow, brutal.
Besides the haircut. Yeah, I mean, he's trying to act his way out from under that haircut and, give him his dues.
Yeah,
he is
give
trying.
him some credit there. He's doing all right.
His conversation with his father after Eärien tries to persuade him, I mean, clearly he is connected to Eärien. He really wants to do this for her because to actually even try and go against his father cannot be easy because Pharazôn is just this huge presence. And Pharazôn schools him.
Oh, absolutely.
Very clearly. on the agenda behind his agreement to do what Miriel wants to do.
Which is fascinating.
It really is. I wanted to definitely bring you in on that, James, because the talk about, the forests and the trade and all that, that's... Talk to us about that a little bit, because the lore, they've already established this in the lore.
Yeah, so what's interesting about it is, at first, we talked about this in the last episode. I had wondered whether what was going to happen is he was trying to get rid of, get Miriel off the scene so he could usurp the scepter while she's gone. I don't think they're doing that. What it seems that they're doing is we're going to actually see some of the exploitative effort, actions of the Númenóreans.
Sort of the Imperial Númenor,
that happened much earlier in the books. We're going to see that play out in this generation.
Yeah.
This sort of domination of the people, this exploitation of the environment, all of that was hinted at in Pharazôn's words. So I think we are going to get that story told.
I think we will. I think you're absolutely right. It's a compressed timeline, but
I mean, this to me is what's meant by the compressed timeline.
Exactly.
Yes. Nothing else is really compression. Other things are moving things around, moving a Region later on in the Second Age and so on.
We've moved a Region. The creation of the rings obviously is being overlaid with this period of Númenor.
Right, which is not compressing. It's just moving things about.
It's just moving, right.
This seems to be compression. This seems to be, we're going to tell a story that did actually happen over many hundreds of years. We're going to make it happen a little sooner.
And that makes sense. I mean, with the Elven storylines, they can move it around without compressing it because they don't have to compress. Those characters can be around forever.
Right.
Yep.
With the human characters, they do have to compress because otherwise we'd be introduced to a new cast every season.
Yep. Yeah.
I get that. So from a cinematic standpoint, I'm not going to give them grief about that compression, but they have to handle it well.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they go.
I'm glad that they're handling these issues because I think it's a very, very, from a thematic point of view,
huge.
From a thematic point of view, it's very important that we see that side of Númenor.
Yes, they need to establish that so we actually get to see all of what Númenor is about, because at the moment they just look like a bunch of really quite nice dudes. But actually, it's very important to establish their imperialist and colonialist tendencies and the brutality with which they enacted that later in Númenor, because we have to establish that the Númenóreans aren't fabulous.
No.
That's why, spoilers, the island gets sunk beneath the wave, because otherwise it just looks mean.
Right. Exactly. Why are the Valar destroying these nice people? No, it's not like that at all. Though I will say I'm a little disappointed that we still haven't gotten to the nub of the conflict between elves and men.
Yes.
I'm waiting for them to get to that. I hope they get to that.
It just seems to be a power struggle at the moment. I won't take orders from the elves will take orders from us.
Yeah, they're going to be taking orders from us by the time we're done.
It's a bit of a strange power struggle. Yeah, the longevity issue hasn't been raised at all. And that is odd.
It is odd. I will say I liked that moment. You talk about Pharazôn sort of having a presence. When he schooled his son there and he just glances at people and they all scatter so that he can have this one-on-one. He doesn't even have to, he just turns his head without even making eye contact with the people behind him. And they're like, we're out. I mean, this guy has got some clout, and also people are afraid of him for very good reason.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I also liked his reference one more time, and we heard this again, I think in episode 3, to rescuing the low men.
Yes.
And it's a reminder once again that, the men of the Southlands are not held in the same regard as the Númenóreans. Mm-hmm. They're not even held in the same regard as the middlemen, which would include like the ancestors of the Rohirrim and things like that. So I just thought that was interesting.
Well, that's important to the whole colonial
absolutely.
theme, right?
Yeah.
This attitude of initially coming as helpers, but initially, in their own minds, they think they're helping.
Yeah.
Right? They dominate in order to help.
Yes, exactly, because that's what's good for them.
Exactly.
Classic colonialism. We come in and we take over because that's better for those people if we do that.
Yeah.
They will be far better off if we take over. It really is a classic. But I want to keep with Kemen because I'm a bit kind of knocked back by the fact that he goes from that conversation with his father to blowing up the boats.
I kind of thought the same thing.
The dinner date must have been amazing.
I know. Right. He is really fishing for that second date. I think you could actually see Eärien kind of playing that up, right? He talks about how, my father, it sucks the air out of the room when he starts to speak. And then she takes his hands, physically touches his hands. Yep. And you could see his reaction changes a little bit.
Yes.
Oh, that poor boy. That poor
I know,
boy.
but I mean, surely he hasn't had time to establish the kind of relationship with Eärien where he's willing to go and blow up the ships.
How many boys have you known, Sara? You don't have to have a relationship before you're willing to blow stuff up. You have to think that there's a possibility of one.
Darling, I'm not interested in boys.
I just happen to remember knowing a few when I was younger.
Yeah,
back when I was just a young man.
Okay. So, can young men do stupid things to get the attention of beautiful women? Duh, of course, because men. But it just seems a bit of a leap.
It does, yeah.
Because yes, I'll confront my father thing because I want to look good. That's one thing. Blowing up ships is a bit different.
Well, as somebody on Twitter said, if Helen, had a beauty that launched 1,000 ships, Eärien has a beauty that blows up 2 ships, apparently.
That is an interesting comparison.
I just want to say I hope the horses weren't on board at that point.
Oh, that would be sad. Yeah, I hope not. I would imagine they haven't been.
Let's hope not, because we saw them being loaded. Yeah, but we saw them being loaded in the background when Isildur tried to speak to his father.
Yeah, you're right.
And there were horses on board some of those ships. I just want to say no blowing up of horses. Bad.
That's a fair point.
They were on the other 3. They were on the other 3 ships.
I'm just going to have that as my headcanon. Yes.
I like that. I also, we talked about Kemen doing that, and it is so extreme. Could he have been acting on Pharazôn's orders? Because when we cut back to Elendil delivering the news, it's clear that Pharazôn has now changed his mind, right? He's now advocating for delay. So
yeah, which seems really strange after that speech he gave to his son in that shop, cafe, whatever it was. Yeah. That seems a very odd turnaround. Why has he changed his mind? Why is he now, looking for delay? It's weird.
Yeah.
Unless he's now concerned that we won't have enough of a military force to accomplish his objective.
Well, it's 3 ships instead of 5 ships. Yeah.
Yeah, and none of those ships really carry 100 men plus horses. I mean, let's just be honest. Those ships are not big enough by any stretch of the imagination.
And yet it was supposed to be 5 ships and 500 men, according to Galadriel. So,
and we see in the trailers a pretty substantial cavalry force. They're all on horseback. There's not an infantry division. So I don't know where they put those horses.
Yeah.
I think they're those little horses made out of sponge that you drop a little drop of water on and they expand to full size. That must be what they are.
Could be.
This is not the only science moment that fails. The idea of shoving 100 horses into one of those holes is just not, physics doesn't work that way, folks, but we'll get to more about science in a minute. I want to get back. We've talked about the Kemen storyline. I want to talk a little bit about the Halbrand storyline here in Númenor.
Mm-hmm. Lord Halbrand, as he's referred to throughout this.
Lord Aquagorn. Yes.
Yes. And as we see, he sold out Galadriel so that he can have a guild badge.
Yes. Just as we speculated that he would do, but I don't think we tied it to the guild badge. That was really cool.
That's exactly what he was doing with Pharazôn when he said it'd be all right if you knew where she was going. And Galadriel works it out. You sold me out for a guild badge. Yes. Yeah. Yes, he did.
Which, of course, he doesn't even deny it. He doesn't bother because of course. And of course, she says, look, I've got your army. We talked about that. Remember when he says to her, well, I think you're short an army. She's going to leave that to me. And sure enough, I'm going to get you 5 ships, 500 men, and a crown. And he still refuses.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to stick with that line. We'll come back to some of the other stuff if we have time, but I want to cut back to that line because Halbrand has a great scene with Galadriel in the smithy towards the end of that sequence. Let's talk a little bit about that because I think we get some really good exposition on both characters.
Mm-hmm. Halbrand tries to find out, why is it, Galadriel, that you're still fighting? Not the first time she's been asked this question. And she does tell him about her brother and she tells him about losing him in the darkness. But this is after Halbrand has said, there are things I have done.
Yeah.
That would make the people here turn away from me, and so would you.
Yeah.
So clearly there is something really terrible in his past. What has he done? And whatever it is, when he left the South, he vowed he was never returning. So he has run from whatever he saw in himself.
Yeah.
Or whatever he chose to do to survive. It's something so terrible, he just doesn't want to face it. And that's why he doesn't want to go back.
Do you think he did a Waldreg?
I won't be surprised.
I do. I think he did do something like that. Yeah. Something that he felt he had to do to survive. Yeah. I mean, let's face it, he's done other things to survive, and we've seen that.
Yeah, that is
On
true.
the raft.
We have seen
On the
his
raft,
willingness.
Exactly. Exactly. But Galadriel makes a really good point, I think, when she connects his darkness to her darkness and her brother dying in darkness. And she says, I have searched for centuries for my peace. And this is how I aim to find it. And this is the way for you as well, because your peace isn't here.
Yeah.
It isn't in a foundry. It isn't in a forge. And I think he seems to kind of think about that, doesn't he?
Yeah. It certainly does reach him, doesn't it? Because when we cut to the morning and he's summoned by the Queen Regent, first he sets the thing down and you're disappointed. And they play the music for a little while, and then we see him snatch it and go. Mm-hmm. And that's when we, get to the moment that we're all excited about, with the parade march and everything.
Yes. And Halbrand finally washes his hair. It's about time.
Cleans up nicely, he does. Yeah.
Yes, he does.
So we get some really, really cool visuals there with that parade march. We get another of the Jackson callbacks, right? We get the slow-mo of people throwing flowers at the feet of the soldiers.
Only a lot more color and a lot more smiles and cheering.
Yes.
That's true. I think, in the Faramir moment, they all know these guys are going off to die. And here we think we're sending off a bunch of rookie guys with no experience at all, and they're going to win.
Yeah.
I got something to tell you. That's not going to happen, but okay. The guards, I just need to give a shout out to our web guy, Phil, was one of the two guards facing the camera in that scene when they're leading them through that hallway. So kudos there. We also get a close up on Elendil, which makes me think he's a red shirt, right? Star Trek reference. He's going to die.
Absolutely. But that's why he's called Elendil, right? He has to be called Elendil because he's going to save Isildur's life, and that's why Isildur will name his son Elendil, of course. Definite red shirt. I'm predicting it.
Poor guy. He's done such a great job, but he's probably dead next episode.
Or pretty soon.
I also wanted to note, when we saw the army going by, we saw women soldiers in the Númenorian army. There were several of them.
Yep.
And I just want to observe the trolls are going to be unhappy about this, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And we can go to the next point. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw them training with Galadriel. There were a few women in the crowd when they were training with Galadriel.
Oh, and I want to talk about that scene so much, but we just can't talk about everything. But that's such an amazing scene. Just real quickly. Wow, I loved it. I loved the music. I thought the music, especially the cinematography, the choreography, all of that.
The choreography was great.
Wasn't
Galadriel
it?
has skills.
Oh, she was schooling those boys.
Yes, it was hilarious when she was smacking one of them on the backside when he went by and she was smacking him with the sword. That was hilarious.
That was really good stuff. She was having fun. She was very much in her element. Mm-hmm. And you could see almost the same kind of joy that she had when she was on the horse.
Yes. Yeah.
Just a pure thrill. Loved it. But yeah, let's go ahead and keep going through this storyline so we can move on to Linden. At the end of that sequence, right? When she boards the ships, everybody's getting on board the ships. The soldiers are on board. Isildur finds out he's a stable sweep. That's hilarious.
That's very funny.
Galadriel comes on in her full plate armor, clearly an inspiration. The music reaches its crescendo. At that point, you really hear that theme repeated, and it is kind of in its fullness at that point, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you can see the heads of every soldier turning as she walks past them. She's meant to draw the eye because she's just so magnificent and glorious in how she is presented here. And then walks up to Aquagorn and they have a moment of connection. Yeah.
And that's when Elendil says it's time to square sail and head out. I suppose this is where I say these three ships, as I've repeated before, cannot possibly carry 100 soldiers each, let alone the horses required for a cavalry unit. But we'll just sort of
suspend our disbelief on that one, maybe. We don't know how deep into the water those ships go. Maybe there's an entire submarine underneath.
Yeah, it's a submarine. It's really just like the top portion of this massive vessel that can hold 100 horses, plus the food for 100 horses, plus the people taking care of the 100 horses.
Yeah.
All right.
Because it's a really short journey across, isn't it?
Oh, I know. It's such a quick trip. I mean, we'll be here by the afternoon, I'm sure.
Yep.
Goodness. All right. Well, I guess it's time, folks, to move on. I feel bad because there's so much in those storylines, all of them, that we could spend more time on. But if we're going to spend any extra time on anything, it's got to be on this next storyline. The storyline of Lindon, of Elrond and Durin. let's go ahead and start with that dinner, right? Gil-galad immediately being kind of rude to his dinner guest, probing him, trying to get answers out of him. Elrond's giving him the stink eye. He's not stopping, though.
But Durin handles him like a boss.
Oh, he does, doesn't he?
Absolutely, brilliantly. Yeah, so Gil-galad's like, oh, so what's going on down in Khazad-dûm? It seems to be really active. And Durin just turns it straight back on him. I could say the same of Lindon. What's going on here? And so, we get this sort of back and forth, but then Durin he absolutely puts a stop to the conversation with the discussion about the table stone. Is Gil-galad absolutely taken in, or is he giving Durin the point here? I think he might be a little bit taken in. I don't think Gil-galad knows that much about quarrying stone.
No, he's an elf. He probably doesn't know very much about quarrying stone at all.
Durin gives it a perfect, Oscar-winning performance.
Absolutely.
It's superb.
And yet, I have to admit, I sat there thinking, I wonder if he's scamming them. He's playing
I did not pick that up at all initially. I fell for it too.
Yeah.
I eventually did. I eventually bought that it was legit, but there was a part of me that's like, oh, he is pulling a fast one on them. He is absolutely pulling the wool over his eyes.
And he was.
He was. It was fantastic. It was superly well done.
Yeah. And when Elrond actually figures that out later on, the look on his face.
So good.
It's priceless.
That is a great little line, and we'll get back to more of the Durin part of that. But for now, I want to stay sort of chronologically. We're going to go to after the dinner when Gil-galad and Elrond are by themselves, and Gil-galad is basically accusing Elrond of lying to him, and Elrond turns that around.
Yes.
Which Gil-galad then throws out, I think, the best little insult we've seen, which is calling Elrond Perithel.
Calls him Elrond Perithel. I think he's putting him right in his place there.
He knows that's Elrond's weak spot, right?
Yes, yeah.
James, help us out. Remind us exactly what Perithel means.
Perithel means half-elven.
There we go.
And it's a reference, of course, to his father. And it's interesting because I think it's a reminder of two things. One, that he is, has human heritage as well as elven heritage, but also a reminder of Elendil and all the pressure he feels about living up to his father and everything like that. So it's sort of a double whammy in that sense.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's another reminder of his lack of status. Yeah. We started the whole show when it comes to Elrond with him being told, elf lords only, you don't get to come to this.
Yes.
I think one of the things they're really trying to play up with the show is his self-conscious and sort of, he doesn't like the fact that his status keeps him down, right? That as a half-elven, he's not considered on the same level as Celebrimbor or Gil-galad.
Yeah, but it does actually separate him out from those elves in a good way as well, because
I agree.
It then shows that he is different to them, that he has different attitudes to them, different ways of thinking to them, which perhaps explains his really quite strong friendship with Durin, which, yes, he had to patch up because he messed up.
Yeah, he did.
But, he is different in his thinking.
He is.
We need to talk about the Song of the Roots of Hithaglir.
Oh, my goodness, we sure do.
The chuffing.
That's where it starts going downhill for me.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, Hithaglir, it means that it is the Misty Mountains.
It is the Misty Mountains. It's the Elvish word for the Misty Mountains.
Yes. Hith means mist, Iglir means mountain, blah, blah. But what?
Okay, my first thought was, all right, they're stretching to give us an origin story of mithril, because Tolkien never gave us an origin story of how this unusual ore came to be.
Here's the problem with that, right? Mithril did not originate.
No.
In the Misty Mountains. It was the only source in Middle-earth.
Yeah, wait till they find out you can find it on Númenor.
It's on Númenor. It was, we first know about it because it was, Vingalots using it. So it existed in Valinor, on Arman at least.
Yeah.
It existed in Númenor. Yes, it's the only place on Middle-earth that it was found, but I just found the whole thing odd.
Yeah.
And it was framed as being apocryphal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, I didn't even feel like it was plausible as an apocryphal story.
Well, and the other thing that makes it totally implausible is that it all happens because there's a Silmaril stuck in the tree.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, that's where they really lost me. It's like, okay, I get the light coming from an elf and the darkness and flame coming from a Balrog, but I'm sorry.
If we must.
A Silmaril? Yeah, if we must. I know. I was like, I can forgive these things.
And Gil-galad says, It's the Lost Silmaril. The Lost Silmaril. Maethros and Maglor would like a word.
That's exactly right. We know where Arendil's is, but both Maethros and Maglor, there's two still.
Yes. Well, one is in the sea and one is in the earth.
Right, and one is in the fiery chasm. Yeah. And none of them are in trees, by the way.
No, I have so many issues with this whole thing.
One of the trees is a Silmaril tree. You should see it when it's in bloom. I mean, come on.
Okay. The way in which Gil-galad then says that the reason why mithril is so sought after is because of this confluence of good and evil in this tree, that mithril is as pure and light as good and as strong and unyielding as evil. Really? I don't think Tolkien ever put those two things together and said, here's a good thing that came out of that.
That is a very good point. No, that's a part where not only do they deviate from the lore, they deviate from the core of the original.
Yes.
Right.
And the idea that somehow it goes to a dualism, right? Which is exactly the opposite of what Tolkien would have talked about when it comes to good and evil.
Yeah, I agree. And that to me was just all wrong. But I have more questions.
Oh, I do too.
Okay, so why does no mithril equal the end of the elves? For sure, and by next spring.
Right.
How can mithril save them? And then they come up with this strange idea of Celebrimbor talking about how it would saturate every elf in the light of the Valar.
Yeah, I know. My eyes could not roll hard enough.
Well, if they'd rolled any harder, you'd have heard the dunk, 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 dunk as they were rolling across the floor.
They would have been rolling down the floor.
Right, exactly. I mean, none of this makes any sense. I don't understand how mithril can save them.
I don't even understand how they could be fading so fast that they need this bathing in the light of the Valar.
But by next spring. That's like tomorrow as far as the elves are concerned.
My immortal soul is actually going to shrivel and die in the span of months.
Right. And Durin just accepts that explanation without going, excuse me, how does that work? Which is very strange. Our people are doomed. Why?
Right.
Why are they doomed? Why are they doomed right now?
Maybe because they have an idiot for a king, is my first thought.
Yes, it could be. I have heard people saying, oh, this might be because Anatar is already whispering in the ears of Celebrimbor and Gil-galad. And
yeah, I've heard that as well.
Well, they're going to have to come up with some explanation because this is silly, actually. And I've not said that about anything they've done before, but this is silly.
That's true. This is beyond. Yeah, this is silly and completely doesn't fit at all. And short of Sauron being Gil-galad himself and the real Gil-galad being tied up in a cave somewhere, I'm not sure they're going to be able to write themselves out of this in a way that works. James?
Yeah, I mean, Gil-galad should not be deceived by any of this as a start. And secondly, it doesn't even work for Celebrimbor, right? The deception of Celebrimbor was nothing to do with this sort of thing.
It was the crafting of the rings. And
also a feeling that Lindon being superior, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
One of Sauron's lies to Celebrimbor is that, Lindon want to keep the bliss of Valinor to themselves.
Yeah.
They don't want you to have as much of the bliss of Valinor in Eregion.
In Eregion, right.
And this just seems so different from that.
And it's not just different in a lore way. Like, I think, here's the thing. I understand why they kind of are turning the elves into a single faction. I understand now why we're not necessarily setting up Celebrimbor versus Gil-galad. And I understand why we're not doing Noldor versus Sylvan elves, right? So I understand a little bit, just for simplicity's sake, why they're combining all of these into just the elves.
Right.
Okay,
right.
I get that. And so in that case, if Celebrimbor gets deceived, Gil-galad has to get deceived too. I mean, Elrond's the hero. He's the one who's got to be able to see the truth.
Right.
Okay, fine.
Okay, get that.
But to this level?
Exactly.
Somehow they're being deceived to think that they're going to die, that their immortal souls are going to just wither away?
By spring.
Elrond actually says, without mithril, elves must abandon these shores by spring or perish. Why?
Yeah, exactly. Why? That's the thing. We are not given why.
Okay, this tree is definitely having trouble, but what?
Even if it's Anatar, yeah. I mean, that's the interesting thing. There's the tree. We still don't know what's going on with the tree.
No.
And its relationship to Galadriel and why she was sent away and all the images.
Yeah.
That's still unexplained.
It's another part of that mystery box thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is where that actually becomes a real negative.
Yeah. You were likening this to Jackson's film and Arwen when we were chatting before this. James. What were you saying about that?
Well, it just felt so much like, Peter Jackson felt the need to up the stakes with the One Ring by tying Arwen's life to it.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem to be doing a similar thing here, saying that the future of the elves is tied to mithril, and it doesn't seem necessary at all to me.
0 sense. Yeah. Okay, so we know that Sauron really liked mithril.
Yeah.
It says in the Council of Elrond, of what they brought to light, the orcs have gathered nearly all and given it in tribute to Sauron who covets it.
Right.
Okay. So again, does this mean that Sauron's behind the wheels here saying, I want lots of mithril? But it just seems so unlikely.
In the Lord of the Rings version of the story, Eregion was settled because of the discovery of mithril. So it's certainly well within the lore to convey the obsession that elves and dwarves and Sauron himself and Númenorians.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Certain Númenorian kings were obsessed with mithril as well.
Yeah.
So that's fine, the obsession with mithril. It's just the power that it has. I mean, some people have pointed out, clearly there may be a role that mithril has in the powers of the three rings, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Their sustaining abilities may partly come from the mithril. That might be what's being sort of set up here.
Do we know that the other two, we know that Galadriel's is made of mithril, but we're not given that the other two are mithril.
No, it's only Galadriel's that we definitely know is made with mithril.
Right.
Now, we don't know that the others aren't, I suppose. We could argue that.
No, not at all. And it would kind of make sense, if you're going to make one out of mithril, it would kind of make sense to make the other two as well.
That's fair.
And if they go down the path of making all of the 20 rings out of mithril, I would be fine with that.
Except that the 7 that go to the dwarves, some end up being consumed by dragons, which wouldn't work if they were made from mithril, right?
True.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I would even overlook that in comparison.
That's fair. Yeah, I could overlook that.
In comparison to the elves fading by spring, unless they get mithril injected into their veins.
Seriously.
Or whatever it is.
That's it. I mean, what are they intending to do with that mithril that will prevent this fading? Because you could cover the elves head to toe in mithril. Is that going to prevent their souls from shriveling? Or are they going to have to eat it? Are they going to have to wear it? Are they going to have to dance on it? Are they going to have to bathe in the light of it? What are they going to have to do for this mithril? I mean, it's not like take one mithril twice a day and it should work.
That's right. And keep your soul intact. It really does seem to stretch logic, stretch the lore, and stretch, the writing for sure.
Oh.
This is really pushing things to a breaking point.
Right.
It's a rough moment. It's a really, really rough moment. And I'm not sure that they can salvage this particular storyline, which is too bad because I think some of the best acting is coming in this storyline.
Yes. Despite the writing.
Owain Arthur did a fantastic job.
Oh, that was my favorite bit of the whole Lindon thing is where he's in it. Yeah. Because he's chewing up the scenery.
Yeah, everything with him in it, everything between him and Elrond is just wonderful.
It's wonderful.
But coming back to Elrond, and I know we're already going to be running a little bit long. I want to get to this stuff here. Celebrimbor, I thought, really went below the belt here. He breaks out the dad card. I was there when your dad set sail.
Oh, was he really? You were? Okay.
Well, the Grey Havens, perhaps that's where he left, when, that would have been Círdan. I don't know why Celebrimbor would have been there.
Well, he could have been. Yeah.
But he could have been, right? There's nothing that says he wasn't. But I really just nearly choked when he said a mere mortal or a mortal man, convinced that he could. Did you not remember? He's half elven.
He's half elven. His
mother is Idril, the daughter of. I mean, come on, man.
Under no circumstances is he a mere mortal man.
Mere mortal.
I know. I nearly choked on my coffee at that point as well.
Seriously.
And then, and Elwing saying, "Oh, but why must you leave?" Oh, please.
Come on.
No.
So let's go back then to the Owain Arthur lines at the end, because that really was fantastic, right? When Elrond starts kind of beating around the bush, being all subtle.
Cut the quail sauce.
Give me the meat and give it to me raw, which I'm sorry, that is going to be the most memeable content of the entire first season.
I
know that's probably supposed to kind of call back to Gollum's give it to us raw and wriggling.
Yes, give it to us raw and wriggling.
But I think it's really not going to stay there in terms of the fandom. I think people are going to really read the wrong things into that.
Yes.
That was terrible. Terrible.
It's really funny.
He really did deliver the line, didn't he?
Give me your meat and give it me raw.
Oh,
That's,
God.
yeah.
Oh.
I'm just waiting for the memes.
Oh, the memes are going to be terrible. The mods in our group are going to have to be very aggressive. But yeah, so Elrond basically confesses to Durin and then explains, we must have mithril or our immortal souls will dwindle into nothing. Now, Elrond's clearly being played by Celebrimbor and by Gil-galad. The question that we're still trying to figure out is whether Gil-galad and Celebrimbor are being played by somebody already who's off scene. We've talked about that. Is Sauron already there?
Yeah.
But poor Elrond, he's not seeing through this yet. And,
no,
so he comes to his friend and he's like, look, we're all going to die if you don't give us mithril.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The fate of all the elves is in your hands.
In whose hands? Can you say that again? I love that. That was Durin and the little sideways glance he gave him was brilliant.
It's brilliant.
Really well done.
I think that plus the moment when the elves are ceremonially turfing that table out and they slip because it's so heavy and Elrond realizes that they've all been played.
They've been had.
Yeah, well, Jis has been wanting a new table for ages.
Okay, anybody who listens to the Prancing Pony podcast knows that I do this kind of stuff. I science things, right? So, we've talked about like how loud must the horn of Boromir have been for Denethor to hear it in the Tower of Ecthelion, and we've come up with like 200 decibels. It would have killed everybody within 50 meters of it, including Boromir himself. So we do this on the show, so you're going to have to forgive me. I actually did some research into how much stone weighs because it surprised me that only 6 guys could carry it. Now, in fairness, I think a lot of this comes because as we're recording this, we're not too many days away from having watched folks, pallbearers, carry the lead-lined coffin of Queen Elizabeth. And you could tell they were carrying something very heavy. Mm-hmm. Well, here it looked like the elves, except for that one moment, it looked like the elves were perfectly fine carrying this with one hand each. They're each carrying one hand. Now, okay, I looked at various kinds of stone. I'll give you the link in the show notes to go calculate it yourself. Based on the table being 12 feet long, and I actually think it might be longer than that, but based on it being 12 by 4 feet and 3 inches deep. That's not that deep, 3 inches. Even with a light stone like limestone or sandstone, that table weighs 1,800 pounds. If it's something like basalt, it's closer to 2,200 pounds. The whole point is each of these 6 elves then is capable of carrying one-handed somewhere in the neighborhood of 325 to 350 pounds without visible strain.
That's impressive.
Do you know how they can do it, Alan?
How?
They've had their mithril.
They took their mithril supplements. I love it. That's great stuff right there. That is great
brilliant
stuff.
Oh
my goodness. Yeah. So I had to do that. I know I took about 3 minutes to explain all that, but I just they're just walking around like it's no big deal. One of them sort of slips. And so they reshuffle the weight, but come on, 6 people are going to carry that all the way from Lindon to what, maybe a boat? Or are they going to carry this all the way to flipping Moria?
How are they going to get that all the way to Moria, to Khazad-dûm?
You're going to need 100 people to rotate in and out, and you're going to need at least 14, 15 of them at a time to carry this table that weighs over a ton.
Well, it somehow got all the way to Lindon.
Yeah, I think probably on something with wheels, because really that's kind of my thought is, don't we have a wheeled vehicle that we can use to transport this 1-ton object?
Oh, who needs it? Who needs it? If we can carry it one-handed all the way, it should be perfectly fine.
I can pick up about 100 to 120 pounds in each hand and stand up. But that's it. And if you think I can do that without visible strain, you're wrong. It looks like I'm about to pop a blood vessel. To try to actually lift it up to that level to
Don't do that at your age. Bad.
Watch it now. To lift it up to mid-torso level and carry it at that point? Oh, no.
From Lindon to Khazad-dûm, by the way.
Right. I mean, okay, no, they're elves and they're stronger than men, but, well, anyway. I digress. It's what we do. One thing that we have not been able to do yet so far has been the mailbag. But now that we've given folks a chance to send in questions, they've been coming. And we actually had some last week and we'd already run long. So, Sara, what's our first question today?
Okay. So our first one comes from Megan V, who asks, what do you think of Amazon's design choice of giving some of the elves short hair? Elrond's hair felt a bit odd to me and will take some getting used to. What's your opinion? James?
Well, this is a really interesting question. So Tolkien himself says very little about this topic. I think it's interesting because we certainly do, for the most part, have a conception in our heads of what elves look like. Mm-hmm. Doesn't necessarily come from Tolkien. It comes from other sources, other portrayals, including the Peter Jackson films, of course. And I think that's largely why, in our own minds, we make this association with long-haired elves. I think it's one of the disservices, actually, that the Peter Jackson films did, was really cement in a lot of people's heads this notion. I don't want to dismiss that view, though, right? Because the way that any kind of portrayal of fantastical places and peoples and so on works is some tie-in to what you expect them perhaps to look like or not look like or whatever. So I don't want to be completely dismissive, but we need to be careful that it's certainly not the case that, that Tolkien intended all elves to be long-haired. And there's wonderful portrayals. I mean, most of the other adaptations, actually, of Lord of the Rings have short-haired elves.
Yeah.
There's wonderful artists like Yenny Dolphin and so on who portray elves with short hair. And so I think it's, as I said, a disservice that the Peter Jackson films have done in cementing this idea that they all have to have long hair. So I personally don't have a problem with it. And it doesn't go against Tolkien in what he wrote in the books anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alan, what do you think?
I actually agree a lot with what you said. There are a handful of characters who are described as having long hair, and those characters, when they show up, will have that. Galadriel is one of those. I don't have a problem with them having short hair in other contexts at all, and I think you're right about the influence of outside art, in this case, the Jackson films. It makes me think back to the Hildebrandt art of hobbits with big feet. Because, of course, we all seem to think of hobbits as having big feet. They don't. There's nothing in Tolkien that says they do. There's only the fact that they have hairy feet or hair on the top of their feet. Nothing about the size. And so the fact that somehow one artist or one set of artists can cement in the public consciousness this idea that then sticks around forever, even if it isn't lore-based. Well, now we've seen that happen with the Jackson films because people are very upset that the elves that they're not all 6'5" and above, with, long hair to the middle of their back, straight, not curly, and they have to walk in a particular way. There is that style that Jackson did, and you're right. It may have been beautiful. It may have been the kind of thing that drew us into Middle-earth, but because it didn't have any variance, it became kind of canonical for most people that elves all have long hair, and there's nothing that suggests that they do. So, yeah, I have no problem with it. Sarah, what do you think?
Well, I agree with a lot of what both of you have said. I know that for some people, one of the things that they miss about the elves that we're seeing in Rings of Power is a kind of ethereality and otherness.
Yes.
That a lot of people feel they got from the Jackson portrayal and they're not quite getting with some of the elves in Rings of Power. And I see what they're talking about here. I get that.
Yeah. Sort of that sense of fairy, maybe.
Right, exactly. It's that fayness, that otherness that makes them different to everybody around them. I'm not sure that just giving them long hair would be a shortcut enough to do that.
I think you're right.
But I can understand why people are attached to that idea, because it is another of those things that perhaps sets the elves off against other creatures, beings, humanoids, whatever we want to call any of them. But as you've said, both of you, there is nothing canonical to say that they must have. Yes, Tolkien did actually state deliberately on occasions a description of some elves' hair. But I don't think you can extrapolate from that every elf must have hair like that. It doesn't bother me, put it that way. I'm not really that exercised about that. It's not something that is throwing me out of the world of Rings of Power Middle-earth, if you like. I think there are other things far more important that I'd be far more worried about.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You talked about, and I think this is the key, it's that etherealness, that otherworldliness. And I think people are picking up on that. People are seeing this, and they don't have that sense with the Rings of Power elves. And a lot of them are seeing, well, it's because they don't have the same visual look, when really it's just the writing. It's really just the way that these storylines are set. And so in a way, we don't get that etherealness from other elements. And I think if we did have that in just the way that they spoke and the way they interacted, maybe the hair issue wouldn't be as big a question mark.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
It's interesting.
So, Alan, do we have time for another one?
I think we do. We'll have to keep it relatively tight. This one does come to us from Jessica, who immediately jumps in with a controversial question, so I'm going to take this. Bronwyn and Arondir having an elf-human romance is taboo and incredibly rare. The show makes this clear, and you all have talked about this as well. But isn't the bigger issue that she's married? Bronwyn at least had a husband, but for the elves, they only marry once, with one notable exception. Tolkien, being a pretty strict Catholic, was not into the idea of second marriages. Additionally, he wrote in Lace, now Lace is Laws and Customs of the Eldar, so we'll reference that essay later. He wrote in that essay that basically sex equals marriage equals sex. She's clearly had sex, hence Theo, but even if her husband is dead, wouldn't the elves view her as being married still, since they only wed once? Therefore, is Arondir committing adultery with Bronwyn according to the laws and customs of the Eldar? And that is an interesting hot take. Sara, do you want to start us off here, or do you want to pass the buck? Can't blame you.
Well,
you do.
I'll do a little bit on that. I mean, first of all, what's the rule for an elf is not necessarily going to be the rule for a human.
Yeah.
So let's just point that out.
Mm-hmm.
And also, in all of the few times where we have had a noted elf-human relationship, it has been other anyway, because it's transgressing the rules anyway. The only sort of exception to that, I suppose, is Tuor and Idril Celebrimbor, because her father was kind of okay with it, because, Tuor...
Well, and Tuor was like the elf man, right? I mean, he was the guy that all the elves thought was an elf, it's, Yeah,
exactly. But it is something unusual anyway. And if something is unusual anyway, then it might well transgress other usual things. But you were talking about Lace, the laws and customs of the Eldar, which is from Morgoth's Ring. Which is book 10 of the History of Middle-earth. And the text here, it does describe lots of different ceremonies, but it actually says these ceremonies were not rites necessary to marriage. They were only a gracious mode by which the love of the parents was manifested, and the union was recognized, which would join not only the betrothed, but their two houses together. It was the act of bodily union that achieved marriage, after which the indissoluble bond was complete. Okay, so marriage means something different anyway to what we are used to. But I don't know, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly that last line certainly supports Jessica's point that sex equals marriage equals sex. I mean, in other words, that once you have the bodily union, you're married, whether or not you've had somebody bless the marriage. So I think, though, the whole thing here is that we're looking at it through an elvish lens. And I think the key is in the Statute of Finwë and Miriel, which is also, by the way, in Laws and Customs of the Eldar. And really, that's a great essay. You all should read it. Mm-hmm. It is made clear that the reason why death does not end marriage for elves, not for humans, is because an elvish Fea would be rehoused. That was the whole problem with Finwë and Miriel, okay? And we don't have time to get into that. But the whole idea was an elvish spirit would get a new body and therefore still be married to the person they were married to before. That's not the case with people. So if we assume that Bronwyn was married, either through human law or simply in the eyes of elves because she had the act of bodily union, but if she had been married and then widowed and he not just run off, well, she would no longer be considered married in the eyes of the elves because her late husband's Fea could never be rehoused. Now, we don't know. I know we've speculated that maybe Aquagorn is Theo's dad and therefore her ex-husband. But if she thinks he's dead, right? I mean, the whole point is if he's dead, if her husband is dead, then a second marriage for her is not a problem. What do you think, James?
Well, I think you bring up a really good point, which is we can't apply the same rules and understanding of the the nature of the soul and everything to humans that we do to elves. So we need to be really careful looking at elvish customs and applying them to humans for the reason you give. The other thing I want to point out is, this is not a relationship that's been consummated, and there's no sign that it's even anywhere close to being consummated.
No. We haven't even seen so much as a kiss.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just a touch on the arm is about it.
Right. And the other thing I want to point out is if it is taboo, how would we expect that to be manifested in the story?
Good point.
To whom would it be taboo?
Only to the other elves, right?
Potentially, if that's what the issue is.
I mean, on that issue, right. I mean, none of the humans are going to like it because he's an elf.
Right, and whether what Tolkien's opinion of it wouldn't matter. I mean, Tolkien's quite happy for characters to do things that Tolkien himself would not approve of.
That is true. That is true.
So the fact that it would be taboo in Tolkien's own mind, I don't think necessarily stops it from happening in the story.
That's a good point.
But I think mostly it's, I mean, there's those three things, I guess, right? It hasn't been consummated.
Right.
She's human, not elvish, so we have to be careful not applying that.
Who is it taboo to? That's a very good point.
Even if it is taboo, doesn't mean it's necessarily inappropriate to have in the story. There's plenty of taboo things in the story. Yeah.
That's a fair point. Well, folks, that does conclude another episode of the Rings of Power wrap-up, but please be sure to join us again next week when we desperately hope the writers can get themselves out of this mithril-based corner.
Oh, boy. Please, please, please. Yeah, I'm almost kind of gritting my teeth against watching episode 6, and I never thought I'd say that, so that's a bit of a shame. Anyway, thanks to the team that helps us get this show out there every week. Our speedy editor, Jordan Rannells, our barleyman, Becca Davis, social media manager, Casey Hilsey, and website guru, the now very famous Phil Dean.
And speaking of the website, give us a visit there at ringswrapup.com. We've got show notes, our online storefront, and eventually some outtakes.
No outtakes allowed. You'll also want to take a look at our library page. This show may be about the Amazon adaptation, but the three of us are first and foremost fans of the books. So we provided links for you to get all the lore. We do get a few pennies from the purchases you make there, so thank you.
Indeed. One last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and, well, most of all of your mithranium, because we need it for our weak spirits to survive till spring, to Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want a chance to have your actual voice heard, you can send us audio of you asking your question by visiting podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
But be sure to send a question to Barleyman too.
Yeah.
Now, we've been able to rely on Barleyman lately, but we do get a lot of mail. So we'll get to you when we can, hopefully before spring. Your question or comment may be featured on a future episode.
That's a good point, because we may not even be here in spring.
Unless we get more mithril.
As always, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Until spring, farewell, friends.